Quorum being present, we'll open the meeting. I'd ask the town clerk to come forward, please, and to read the warrant.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Plymouth. To either of the constables of the town of Halifax and the county of Plymouth, greeting. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town qualified to vote in the elections and in town affairs to meet at the Halifax Elementary School in said Halifax on Tuesday, the 7th of March next, 7:30 o'clock in the afternoon, then and there to act on the following articles. And you are directed to serve this warrant by posting up attested copies thereof at the Town Hall, Halifax Post Office, and 3 other public places in said town, 14 days at least before the time of holding said meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at a time and place of meeting as foresaid. Given under our hands this 14th day of February, in the year of our Lord 2017, Kim Roy, Tom Ilias, Troy Garin, posted by Constable Tom Hammond.
Thank you, Mrs. Gaynor. Would you all please stand? And gentlemen, remove your hats. We'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you for your patience in getting started. A couple of preliminary notes. As I mentioned, the 4th of July committee, the Halifax and Lights, has refreshments in the corridor for anyone that wants to, and also make a donation if you like. As our usual procedure, in case folks that are here for the first time on a town meeting, in order to speak at town meeting, you have to first of all be a resident of the town and a registered voter. And during the course of the meeting, if you want to have a opportunity to speak, please stand up, call out Mr. Moderator, and raise your hand so that I know where you are, and I will call on people as ready. Otherwise, if I don't see or hear you, I'm not ignoring you. I just don't know that you're there. Thirdly, our bylaw requires now that we do the articles by lottery, which we will do. However, in the lottery, there's an exception for related articles. And for anyone that's reading along in their warrant, Articles 4 and 5 are, in the moderator's opinion, related. And so Article 4 will go before Article 5 no matter when either one of those two come up.
Article 8.
Article 8. That's proposed by the town clerk.
Article 8 has to do with accepting Mass Gen... Oh, I'm sorry, I moved the article.
We have a second. Second. A motion and a second to act on Article 8.
Article 8 has to do mainly with voter registration. It's accepting General Law, Massachusetts General Law 41, Section 110A. As it stands now, there's so many days before an annual election or a special town election that you have to vote, 20 days and 10 days, depending on which election it is, town meeting. If counting backwards from that date, it falls on a Saturday, the town hall is required to be open on a Saturday. So this article would ask that you treat Saturday as a holiday so that the day would move to Friday as opposed to a Saturday.
Thank you. Finance Committee's recommendation on Article 8.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Finance Committee recommends. Is there any debate on Article 8? Seeing no evidence thereof, all those in favor of Article 8 as printed in the warrant, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Article 5.
Article 5 has to go after Article 4, so we will now take up Article 4, and then immediately thereafter, we'll take up Article 5. And Article 4 is proposed by the Board of Assessors. Do you have a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Milius.
I move Article 4 to see if the town will vote to provide the authority for the Board of Selectmen or their designee, the Board of Assessors, to negotiate a proposed solar energy pilot agreement between the Town of Halifax and Sun Connect Massachusetts 12 LLC on behalf of the town and to take any other action relative thereto.
Okay, we have a motion as stated, and then a second. Mr. Milius, it's your motion.
I wasn't prepared to speak to it, but I will. This is a typical agreement between a town and a solar company putting in a solar field. Pilot refers to payment in lieu of taxes. Basically, what it ends up being is the town, through the Board of Assessors, has negotiated a tax payment, if you will, on a yearly basis to continue until the expected life of the project is over. In addition, there's also funds built into this negotiation to decommission the field should it happen. There's a bond that's provided to the town to cover the cost of anything that might have to be dismantled at a future date. This is a very standard, typical agreement. We'll try to answer any questions if anybody has any further questions.
Okay, Finance Committee's recommendation, Article 4.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Finance Committee recommends. Is there any debate on Article 4? Seeing no evidence thereof, all those in favor of Article 4 as proposed by Mr. Milius, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. We'll now move to Article 5. Mr. Milius?
Well, in anticipation of town meeting,
You need to make a
Yep,
motion,
I'm
please.
sorry.
Thank you.
I'm going to move Article 5 to see if the town will vote to approve the agreement for payment in lieu of taxes for real and personal property, the pilot agreement, as approved by the Board of Selectmen on February 28, 2017, among and by the Town of Halifax and the Solar Energy Generation Company, Sun Connect Massachusetts 12, or MA12, LLC, as such pilot agreement was negotiated by the Board of Assessors on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, and to take any other action relative thereto.
We have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second as Mr. Milius stated. Mr. Milius, it's your article.
What we did in the previous article is we basically authorized the negotiations that already happened in order to try to get this approved at this special town meeting. What we're voting on in this particular article now, Article 5, is the actual approval of the agreement.
Thank you. Finance Committee's recommendation, Article 5.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Finance Committee recommends. Is there any debate or discussion on Article 5? Seeing no evidence thereof, all those in favor of Article 5 as proposed by Mr. Milius, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next article.
Article 2.
Article 2.
Mr. Moderator, I move to pass over Article 2.
Okay. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Passing over an article means we will not take any action on the article. Mr. Milius, do you want to explain your motion?
Yes, I would like to do that. What it came down to here, my motion involves a discomfort level with the money amount for the fire suppression system. We originally started talking about a $686,000 system that has suddenly mushroomed to $1,046,000. We only found this out several days ago. This is a terrible time to have to bring it up, but I believe the sentiment on the board is that we want to take at least a little time to try to see what the difference was, why it happened, and if we can't do something that would save us some money. Over $1 million for fire suppression seems to be a lot at this particular moment, although everything seems expensive, but this was thrust upon us so late in the game that we want an opportunity to take a better look at it. The intent is to take a better look at it and bring it back at the annual town meeting, which is like 2 months away. That's where we're at. We were hoping to, get this accomplished tonight, but passing over seems to be the more reasonable thing to do.
Okay. Finance Committee's recommendation on the motion to pass over.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Finance Committee recommends. Is there any debate on the motion to pass over, meaning we'll take no action on Article 2? Seeing no evidence thereof, all those in favor of passing over Article 2, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes by majority.
Article 1.
Article 1 is proposed by the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Milius.
I move Article 1, that the town appropriate the amount of $7,194,955 for the purpose of paying costs of repairs and renovations to the Halifax Elementary School located at 464 Plymouth Street, including but not limited to the roof, windows, doors, siding, and tree work, including but not limited to any architectural, engineering, and administrative work associated with this project, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, the project, which proposed repair project would materially extend the useful life of the school and preserve an asset that otherwise is capable of supporting the required educational program, and for which the town has applied for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, the MSBA, said amount to be expended under the direction of the Halifax School Building Committee. To meet this appropriation, the town treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, pursuant to any other enabling authority. The town acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement, discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA. And if the MSBA's Board of Directors votes to invite the town to collaborate with the MSBA on this proposed repair project, any project costs the town incurs in excess of any grant that may be approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town, provided that any borrowing authorized hereunder shall be subject to and contingent upon an affirmative vote of the town to exempt the amounts required for the payment of interest and principal on said borrowing from the limitations on taxes imposed by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, subsection 21C, Proposition 2.5, and that, if invited to collaborate with the MSBA on the proposed repair project, the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth by the project funding agreement that may be executed between the town and the MSBA.
We have a second.
Second.
Thank you.
We'll give Mr. Milius a chance to catch his breath.
I'm going to defer to
If you're
Mr. Seelig
capable.
to speak to this.
It's your motion. If not, you can defer, sure.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Seelig, if he's still here. Otherwise, you get more of me.
Yeah, well, it should. It's a little better. I'm Charlie Seelig, the town administrator, and I'm going to just very briefly go over this because we've already done a public presentation back last month. There's been plenty of discussion in other venues. Many of you already know all the elements of the project, so I'm just going to be hitting the highlights. Obviously, we were here to talk about repairs to the elementary school. My son had said many years ago about his grandmother, she's very, 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 very old. Well, the school's not that old, but it's old enough that we need to work on some of the elements of it. The last edition was built back in 1993. That's when most of the roof was put in. Siding, the doors and windows in some cases are even older. Time takes its toll, and it's time to make some significant repairs to the elementary school. Let's see if, make sure. I'm going to hope. jumping. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. So what we're showing is a few brief photographs of damage that we've had from leaks in the roof over the years. Keep going. The way the roof looks like now, the siding, this is inside and outside in essence. Keep going, yeah. More evidence of our problems here. We've got windows and doors that are at best 23, 24 years old now. In some cases, they are 30, 40, 50 years old. They're not efficient. They're warping. We've got leaks coming in through there. We've got air leaks coming in. All sorts of problems with these. Next slide, please. And more of the same. So what happens when you've got a building like this and you've got problems like this is you call your friends up in the Boston area, the Massachusetts School Building Authority. They're the agency that will provide funding for cities and towns and school districts to do projects like this. They have come in and said they will help subsidize the cost of the roof, the windows, and the doors. They don't do siding. They wouldn't also do the fire suppression system or anything, but for the article we're talking about, they will help us fund the roof, windows, and doors work. The siding is going to be on our own. Next slide. They do this for a wide range of school districts. I'm sure you've seen news articles, whether it's in Brockton or Marshfield or Kingston or any other place in the South Shore, southeastern Massachusetts. They do it all over the place. It's not just us. And they do it for both new schools and for repairs to schools. In our case, because we've got a school that can be repaired, they're not looking at us and saying, oh, you need a new school. They're saying, we can give you money to do necessary repairs. They're not going to say that about the idea of, oh, your school's not in great shape, let's build a new one and spend even more money. Next slide, please. What we've outlined here very briefly are the costs of the project. These are the various elements. So schematic design that we've already done, construction that we're hoping to do. To get construction done, you need a designer, you need an owner's project manager. As with any project, I'm sure you've done this at home, you want a contingency because Murphy's Law says if you don't put in a contingency, you're going to need the money. And then if you do put the contingency in, you might still need the money, but at least you have it there. That's a total. The fire suppression system and the security system now we've already knocked out, so we're back up to just simply the total MSBA project. Next slide, please. When our architect came in with the estimates for the work we want to propose, the estimates are based on bids in the middle. We assume when we go out to bid that we'll get bids higher and lower. So we're thinking, here's the estimate in the mid-range. Our hope, of course, is that we'll have bids under that. And so while the estimates are conservative, meaning that they're a little bit more than what we actually expect, that the actual numbers that will come in will be a little bit less than what we're projecting today. These are the actual elements, how much the roofing, the windows and doors, the siding would cost. And we, of course, obviously the fire suppression upgrades and security system are off the table again. But those are the construction numbers for those three elements. And a little bit about each of the pieces of the project. We're putting in the new roof. And we know that when you go out and put a new roof in, you lift the old roof and you say, ugh, I got to repair some things underneath there. I had a new roof done to my house a few years ago, and there was rot. And you have to replace that as part of the work, and this includes that. Next slide. For the doors and windows, we've got doors and windows of various ages. Obviously, when you do that type of work, even if you're not doing a complete siding project, you're going to need to do some siding work around there too. Next slide, please. And then we've got the siding itself. We put in much better siding that was put in 23, 24 years ago. It should last longer than the siding that we put in back then. It will be more energy efficient. It won't let in the water that vinyl siding, for instance, would let in. So it's a win in a number of cases. We can skip the fire suppression system for now. The funding request obviously is now for the MSBA project, which is the article we're talking about. We've already spent the money on the schematic design. We already appropriated that money. So tonight we're coming in for the $7,194,955. We expect to get a grant of the amount there. Obviously, when the bids come in and everything, that number is going to change, but we're having to make certain assumptions and estimates tonight. But that's our expectation of what the MSBA will put in. That's based on the percentage reimbursement that the MSBA would provide for our project. That number is already known. And then we have the town share, which is the $3.7 million. We didn't have a number in there. I know that Sandy Nolan has a separate number for this article. I believe it's, how much now? So just for Article 1, it would be $122.96 per household. That's based on an average median price household of about $297,695. So if you have a house that's valued at less than that, you'll pay a little bit less than the increase of $122.96. If you have a house that's valued more, you'll pay a little more. That's the first year's increase in your tax bill once the bond starts. After that, the number drops to $69.29 after 20 years, then completely disappears at the end of the 20 years because we're going to be funding this via a debt exclusion. So at the end of 20 years, we don't take this money and then spend it on something else. The project ends, the taxes end on the project, and we're finished. Again, we broke out the numbers again to show where we've spent the money, where we need to be spending the money. We've showing some combinations, but what we're asking for is the total amount for all three phases of the project: the roof, windows and doors, and the siding. Next slide, if there is one. Got one more. And we're also showing here how much we're going to put in and how much the state's putting. As I mentioned earlier, the siding number, we're paying the full freight for. On the roof, windows, and doors, the state puts in approximately 56%. And then we have the sprinkler security project, which is off the table for tonight. I think that may be it. Okay, very briefly. The longer we wait to do this, the more it costs. That's for three major reasons. One is construction inflation is running about 5% per year, so it's never going to get less expensive than it is today. Second is that the damage to the school that will happen if we don't move on these things will be worse. So even setting aside construction inflation, if you wait a year or two to do these projects, the damage under the siding, the damage due to leaks and such under the roof, and the roof rot and everything will be worse. It will cost us more money because there will be more damage. And a third thing, and I think you may have been seeing this in the news just in the last couple of weeks, interest rates will continue to go up. That's simply a function of the Federal Reserve. For instance, they expect to raise rates sometime this spring, probably 2 or 3 more times this year. Our rates are matched to their rates. The longer we wait, the higher the interest rate. So principal cost, meaning the cost of the actual construction we're going to do, will go up the longer we wait. The interest cost will go up the longer we wait. I understand that in a different world, we'd like to sort of phase in this project. Let's just do the roof today. Let's just do the siding next year. Let's just do the windows and doors the following year. But everything's more expensive. And one thing I've heard very clearly from the residents during the last couple of months is obviously a reluctance to spend money. But if that reluctance is there, this is the time to actually get it done, because it's not going to be any less expensive. We're going to be coming back to you for the project, whether it's in pieces or as a whole, with a request for more money tomorrow rather than today. We have the designer here. We have the project manager here. If there are specific questions that they can answer because of their expertise, I hope you'll give them a listen. If the questions come up, we have school committee here, finance committee, selectmen. We have school administration here. We answered questions back last month, but we're here again to answer as many questions to get you to reach your vote tonight. Thanks very much.
Okay, we need the Finance Committee's recommendation, please.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Finance Committee recommends. It's open for debate. Yes, sir. Come on up front, please. I should have said in the beginning, and since this is the first one, we'll just remind everyone to please speak loudly into the microphone. Always face the moderator so that we have some order to things. And start by telling us your name and where you live, please.
Edmund Diego, Paradise Lane, 23 North.
Closer, closer, closer.
They can't hear me? I can
No,
speak
I
up.
can't. I can hear you.
Jeez. Edmund Diego, Paradise Lane,
Thank you.
23 Paradise Lane, Halifax. You know, why? I know it's deteriorated and things got to be fixed, but what happened? This stuff didn't just show up, all these problems. And I want to know what happened to the maintenance budget the school committee is supposed to put in.
Okay, if you have a seat, we'll try to get an answer for you.
Can I stay here? Excuse me, have we limited on how many questions we can ask?
No, but how many questions do you have?
Well, it could be a lot, it could be a lot. And this is a sore thorn
We have a
in
big
my-
crowd here,
This is
so-
a sore thorn in my back, I'm telling you.
Okay, we have a big crowd here, so we're going to try to keep it moving. So why don't you have a seat, and we'll have an answer for the maintenance budget. Anybody here from Mr. Seeley?
I'm in agreement with you that there have been problems with the school maintenance. I don't think that's happened recently. As I mentioned back in February, I think with the change in administration, both at the district level and here at the elementary school, with the principal, with the vice principal, with the custodial staff, including Matt Durkee, that the maintenance of the school has become a priority for everybody here. There's ownership with the school. It's not simply something that is unimportant to the education of the students. I'm not, but as I said, I'm not in disagreement. There have been years where the school could have been better maintained. But part of this is that some things, no matter how well maintained, will age out. For instance, normally for the roof, we're talking a roof now that is 23 or 24 years old. I don't care how well maintained it is, you're going to need to replace it after a certain length of time. The same thing is true with the windows and doors. In some cases, we're talking probably 50 or 60 years for some of those windows and doors. They're not energy efficient. At a certain point, you need to replace them. And the same is true of the siding. I think what happened with the siding is that it was not properly done back in 1993 when it was installed. So the ill effects to it are much worse than might have happened otherwise. It's unfortunately a problem that we have, not our predecessors in 1993, and we're left to solve it. I'm not in disagreement with your complaint, but this is the way out.
Yes, sir. Come on up front. Okay, I'll get you next. Don't worry. We have a lot of folks here, and I'm sure there's a lot of discussion. I'm going to try to be as fair about this as I can. So if you can come up with your questions already in your head and everything ready to go, and if you have more than one question, if you want to give us a couple, that's good. We'll just try to keep this moving. I'm sorry.
Good evening,
Go ahead.
Mr. Moderator. Thank you for having me, giving me the opportunity to come up and speak. A couple of questions that I have. When we talked 2 years ago about senior center at one point, the design and the cost for the design, okay? We're talking $433,000 for the design of replacing windows, replacing a roof, and replacing a sprinkler system. For me, just the design is there. I'm wondering why that cost is so high, for one. The time of the grant that you're speaking about, in regards to the interest rates that we're going to have, we're expecting those interest rates to go up, and then where we're going to be in 20 years or 25 years, the roof is going to need to be replaced again. So can you just speak on those two issues?
Could you say the second one again? I wasn't following.
When we talk about the length of the grants that we're going to get or the loan we're going to have to pull out for this, okay, and how much money we're going to spend for this over the next 20 years, 25 years, we're back at square one. This roof is 23 years old. It seems like it's was a poor design. Maybe the roof wasn't a poor design because as a housing owner, you think about replacing your roof for 20, 25 years. But the siding was certainly poor. Not sure what happened with the fire system, but that That's baffling to me. And I guess the last question that I had, well, I'll leave it at those two questions for now.
Okay, we'll see if we can get an answer. So the question was the design cost, and the second question, I believe, is having to do with the quality of the work that will be proposed, if I understand your question right? I know you were talking about mortgage rates and so on, but I wasn't...
Exactly. We're going to be back in the same situation 25 years.
Okay.
With
so
the
how-
length of the loan and where we're going to be paying out. That's what I kind of heard about 5 minutes ago. And I just remembered the last third question, if you could. From the designers or whomever is going to be running the project, what kind of guarantees are we going to get that we're getting the top quality work?
Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry? Okay, we actually have the designers here. They are not town meeting members, nor under the bylaw do they have the right to speak by unanimous consent, meaning as long as nobody says I object right now, we could have them answer those questions. I don't hear an objection, so. And if you just speak into the microphone and really tell us who you are and
Yeah, my name is Steve Habib. I'm the president of Habib and Associates. We're the architects. Can you hear me all right?
that's better.
That fee is roughly 6% or something in that range, which is normal and customary. It's a public bid project. There's a lot of regulations that need to be followed and consultants and investigative work that needs to happen throughout this project, as well as a two-phase construction sequence which will occur. The roofing work would be done this first summer, and the windows would be done the following summer. So that constitutes quite a bit of on-site work during the construction, time spent, and that's an appropriate fee for this level of renovation work.
Okay, I think that was the part on the design cost that you were speaking to, or the cost of the design, that was one of the questions?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then also the guarantee, what's the guarantee? We wanted to know, how do we know that we're not going to be in the same situation in a short time from now?
Well, obviously, as the architect, I cannot guarantee anything. It will be designed appropriately with appropriate materials, and the proper warranties would be provided by the contractors and would be included in the specifications that would be developed. But I'm not in a position to guarantee the work of a contractor.
All right, so we have a second speaker also. And again, tell us who you are, please, and speak into the microphone.
John Lemieux from Vertex, we're your owner's project manager. As far as guaranteeing quality of the project as it moves along, there's a couple of things. First, the MSBA, as being part of their program, supplies a commissioning agent as part of the process. Basically, as the designer goes through and designs the windows, the doors, the roof for the project, he's essentially getting a peer review from an MSBA hired consultant. It's not a cost to the town, it's a cost borne by the MSBA. They provide those folks. They provide comments on the design throughout the process, and then they also provide commissioning once the windows, doors, and roof are put on. Once it's done, they come out, they'll do pull tests on the roof, they'll do water tests on the windows and doors. As a second belt and suspenders, the MSBA requires that we, as your project manager, have a clerk of the works on site full-time, from the minute the contractor starts to the minute the contractor leaves. So not only do you have the architect's periodic visits based on reviewing the work in place when it comes time for payment at the end of every month, but you do have an on-site eyes and ears for the duration of the project, making sure that details are being followed, materials that are supposed to be provided are the ones that were submitted and approved by the architect along the way.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Diabro, I cut you off before, so if you have a couple of questions, why don't you give them to us? Okay. You have to come up because they can't hear you in the back.
Well, when I was head custodian here for 28 years, we had a maintenance budget. We also had 2 men that did small types of work, paint and stuff like that, and repairing. And I just want to know that you had to have blinders to see what's going on here, because I walked around the school. I know this school inside out, up in the half rafters and everything else. And it just amazes me about when you say like this is about the 5% per year and the damage to the school will worsen. Well, this has happened. This has got to be happening in maybe, 10, 15 years? The paint, everything else? I don't think, when I know what we did, I know it's been a long time ago, and knowing what happens now, so there is a maintenance budget, because the school did have a maintenance budget, and it was 2 of us that did all the maintenance. And I even worked on the boilers. So it don't make sense. The school committee has got to tell me why they don't have a maintenance budget and what they got in it.
Okay, I'll see if I can get an answer. Mrs. Blackwood, Superintendent Blackwood, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Joy Blackwood, and I'm the superintendent. That's a great question, and believe me, I feel your frustration. About 5 years ago, some of you may remember, we painted the building. We hired some of the gentlemen who were housed in Plymouth because it was free labor. They painted the building. They did a beautiful job, and if you look outside, you can see there's no more paint on the building. The reason is when the siding was installed, it was installed backwards. The siding will not hold the paint. We can't maintain it. It has to be replaced. I feel your frustration, truly.
Mrs. Blackwood, you have to,
Sorry.
thank you.
I feel bad, my back's to
I
them.
know. That's fine.
So we have tried to maintain it. The roof is well beyond our maintenance budget. If you worked for us for 28 years, I apologize. I've been here 11 years, but you were before my time, I think. We don't ever have the roof as part of our maintenance project. We have leaks. Mr. Beaudry and Mr. DeSantis have been up there themselves, and Mr. Durkee, trying to fix the leaks to the best possible. Some of you in this room may have children who are in the rooms that are leaking. We can't keep up with it. It needs more than our ability for Band-Aids. This is a permanent fix that is needed. The siding has to be replaced. The windows and doors, again, they are very old. Some of them go back to the original building. So I do feel your pain. If you walk through the building now, you'll see the interior, those things that we can maintain. We're painting, we're trying to keep up with the floors, we're doing the things that are within the maintenance budget. These are large ticket items well beyond our means. Does that
Okay,
answer your
thank you.
question?
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, sir, in the back.
John Beddoe, 165 Walnut Street.
Thank you.
So I understand that this is supervised construction then? All construction will be supervised, okay. Other question is on the windows and doors, is it strictly all exterior windows and doors? When we do them, what brands do we plan on using? And also, are you doing card access at the same time?
What's that word?
Card access? In other words, card access in all the doors? What's the scope on doing the doors and windows? And then the other question is just to reiterate, we take a 20-year bond on this roof. We're going to get 30 years out of it. We're going to be back in the same boat by the time we pay it off. So what provisions have we done to get ready for the future? Because obviously we aren't, maintaining the school enough. A lot of the stuff I'm seeing is obviously maintenance, lack of. So what do we plan on doing to address this so that in 20 more years we're not sitting here, or are we just going to rip everything down and start over?
Okay, I'll try and get answers for you. So there's a question on windows and doors and the scope of the work. Maybe the architect would be able to help us with that. And the second question has to do with ongoing maintenance plans, and maybe Mrs. Blackwood can address that.
Well, with respect to the windows and doors, these will be high-quality, commercial-grade systems that will be installed with the energy efficiency to meet the current energy code and the standards that are dictated. And so they're very, very durable. They're significantly more durable. I expect them to last many years, to sustain the needs of the school. So it's a higher quality of specified materials that would be used throughout the project.
There were other question had to do with whether or not the interior doors were being replaced, and something about the tarring of the doors. I didn't understand them.
Oh, the card access is part of the security system that I believe will be voted on moving forward, but is not part of this particular project. And the doors are the exterior doors, not the interior doors.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Seelig is going to address the budgetary issues and maintenance.
I guess there are a few solutions to the challenge of not having us come back here 25 or 30 years from now to have to, for instance, redo the roof. I think that's one of the options, obviously, because at some point you do have to redo the roof, just as you have to redo the roof on your house. You can layer shingles only so many times, and at some point you have to take the whole thing out and start over again and put in a new roof. And you take out a loan to do that, which is what we're proposing here. You can try and extend it as farther so that you maintain the roof as well as you can to extend the life of the roof, and I would certainly hope that we're going to be prepared to do that, and our successors will do that also. The other way, of course, is that you choose a shorter length of time for the loan. Now, we've proposed a 20-year loan at 4.25% interest. There's nothing preventing the town, and it wouldn't be a vote here of the town meeting, it would be a vote through the Board of Selectmen and the town treasurer, but certainly, they'd be willing to accept your input, that we pay off the loan in 10 years. Now, that has a couple of small benefits. One is that you lengthen the term of the loan, you end up paying a bit more interest over the life of the loan, so the total cost is more. You shorten it, you pay a little bit less interest. Those folks who pay 13 mortgage payments instead of 12, for instance, they keep shortening the length of the loan for their home mortgage, and they end up paying a little bit less over the term of the loan. We could do the same thing. We could reduce it to 10 or to 15. But that raises the amount that you have to spend every year to do that. Of course, then you don't have to spend anything the following years after you've paid it off. That's another option. And the third one is, while we're paying this loan, if you feel that the best thing for the town to do is to start putting money into the stabilization fund so that in 20 or 25 or 30 years from now, there's a sufficient nest egg to cover the cost of a roof or the cost of whatever else would have to be done here, that's certainly an option. Of course, it takes money to do that, and it's going to be a choice we have to make between putting money aside for some future event 20 or 25 years from now and spending money now on things we think we need now. And that's something I guess most households have to worry about every year. College tuition is a perfect example of that. So I think the Finance Committee, the Selectmen, and other town officials are willing to listen to people about what choices you want to make about how to fund all this in the future. But for right now, our choice is get this project done, and we're going to have to take out a loan to do it.
Thank you. Yes, sir, in the back, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Last time I forgot, John Grace, 7 Spencer Drive. Through you, Mr. Moderator, to the designers and the contractors, if possible, I'm just curious how they were directed. When I go to Home Depot and I want to put a floor in or a window in, I'll talk to somebody and they say, well, this is a 10-year window or a 10-year floor, 15-year floor, 20-year floor. Okay? Were they directed to give us the best, mediocre, or lowball efforts or lowball priced? And I'm just curious, only because I just want to know what we're getting. Okay. So I'm just kind of looking for that information right there. And how they were directed, why they were directed in that area.
We'll try and get an answer for you.
John Lemieux, Vertex, Owner's Project Manager. Basically, the MSBA, to participate in the program, they set minimum requirements of what they're expecting back as far as quality. Steve mentioned that it's not just the energy code, it actually has to meet the stretch code, whether or not Halifax is a stretch code community or not. Those windows, doors, roofs all have to perform 20% higher than the basic code. The roofs, on average, are 20 to 30-year roofs. You start getting past 30-year roofs, the benefit's not there for the additional premium you pay, for the additional lifetime. Windows, as Steve said, commercial grade, higher end. We're not allowed to specify a specific window. We're allowed to specify performance criteria and name 3 manufacturers. And then the contractor that wins the project will submit, and we'll make sure that the window that they are going to provide meets the performance criteria that were issued in the specifications that Habib and Associates write. And again, those specs will have been reviewed and approved by the MSBA because they're paying, over 50% of the cost of this work.
I think the question directed is, not to speak for him, but he just wants to be sure we're getting quality pieces.
We're getting quality because, frankly, the MSBA doesn't want to see you for another 20 years. Okay. But by investing this, they're hoping that, the work that goes in place will get you through another full life cycle, for the components you install.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Moderator, Gordon Andrews, 688 Plymouth Street. I just think that the people are frustrated at the fact that, we've paid for maintenance on the building. We can't even get an answer of what the maintenance money gets spent on. And is that line item used for something else, number one? Number two, going forward, based on what we see from the past, wouldn't it make more sense for the town to take over the maintenance of the building if it's over the head of the school department? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense going forward and doing the same thing over and over again.
Okay, I'll try and find out. I guess the question is, right now, the maintenance is overseen by the school committee, and he wants to understand what we've been doing with the money.
I'm Joy Blackwood, I'm the superintendent. The maintenance budget is used to maintain the building. It's used to do painting, it's used to maintain the contracts for our HVAC system, to maintain the boilers, anything that happens to go wrong in the building. It is not of the caliber for these large item projects. We paint, we replace tiles on the floor. We had problems with some of the flooring. We've had to replace that. Where we have leakage in the roof, we've had to replace the to help prevent the mold. We've had to replace those. As we've had leaks in the roof, we've replaced them to the best of our ability. Our maintenance budget is nowhere near of the caliber for these large items and projects. These are well beyond any school system's budget.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, ma'am, right in the middle.
Hi, Deb Shosham on Ponce Street. Did we have to use MSB
Little closer.
when we had the previous building done? All the additions, did we go through the MSB?
Mr. Seeley, if you'd have a seat, please, we'll get an answer for you.
John may be able to correct me on this, and of course the actual project in I-3 was before I was here, but there was a predecessors to the MSBA before then. I think, in fact, one of the last projects the predecessors did where we got the significant funding for was over at the Silver Lake Middle and High School. What happened was that there was a lot of reform at the state level. They were looking at the numbers that they were providing to the school systems across the state, and there had to be a reform done, I suspect, sometime in the last 10 or 12 years, which obviously would post-date the 93. So we did have the equivalent of the MSBA providing money, but the services that they provided were minimal, if I remember right. I was working in other Massachusetts towns at the time, in that, to a large extent, you went in, you had a certain rate, and you handled everything on your own. I think there was a lot more waste involved back then in the 80s and 90s, and the state said we can't keep spending all this money and throw it, in essence, down the drain. We're going to make sure that the state's contribution is well spent, that in fact the criteria that John and Steve have mentioned in regards to MSBA money are going to be met, so that the money is efficiently and effectively used rather than wastefully used.
Okay, any further discussion? Yes, ma'am?
Hi, Dawn Corby, 17 Musterfield Lane. I would personally like to see a breakdown on this design cost, because if I recall...
Come a little closer.
If I recall correctly, the design cost to do the senior center was astronomical as well. So I would really like to see a breakdown and not just say, well, there's some going here and we got to do this and I understand all that, and we certainly can't have the school in shambles. But I think we have to cut fat where it is. And if that means in all these little corners where all these little fees are here and there, I think before we vote on this, I think we should see approximately what that $433,000 goes to.
Okay, I'll try and get an answer for you. Can someone answer the question on design costs? Halifax and Lights is still selling refreshments out in the corridor. Huh? Oh, okay, and things for hops also. Town squares? Oh, hops for hops.
Want me to say it?
Squares for the hops for hops.
Yeah,
Got
so
it.
the hops people are selling squares for the plop. And so you have a chance to win money. So they are and all the proceeds go toward the playground.
Okay, the question on design costs?
Yeah, I'm going to try and break this down for you, but there are several phases in the project, in the process of generating the documents that need to go out for public bidding. And it's broken down by phase. And by the way, the MSBA has reviewed the fees, and they are well within their guidelines, and they are significantly lower than what the state allows. But nonetheless, I'll tell you as best I can where it falls. So for the roof project, the generation of the construction documents is roughly $17,000. I'm sorry, that's project managers. Roughly $109,000 for generation of the construction documents. Now, what's involved in that is field documenting all of the various roof systems and all of the various connections of the roof systems, how the roof meets the wall, how the roof meets the edge of the building. All of the penetrations are documented and detailed so that the contractor knows exactly what they need to do and how those pieces will fit together, so that you don't end up with a system that does not last or that fails prematurely. There's quite a bit of work involved in that. There's a team that will be on the roof, that will be measuring, that will be detailing, and that will be bringing that back to the office and then generating the construction documents. Now, associated with the construction documents is more than simply the drawings and the details. It also involves the specifications. The specifications are detailed to the point that the contractors know exactly how they need to do the work and what each and every piece of material will be, what the criteria will be, what the performance will be, what the life expectancy. All of that needs to be plugged into the public bid documents and in the specifications. The window project construction documents are estimated to cost approximately $90,000. And again, it's the same process that would occur. That would be the full investigation of all of the windows around the building, looking at how they're detailed now, how they will be detailed moving forward. The details are extensive. They include the heads, the sills, the jambs, and there are a variety of different window types that would be detailed and that would be delineated on the documents. Again, the specifications are generated with all of the criteria, all the performance requirements of all of the components for the windows. The bidding phase, we have two public bidding processes. For the roofs, the bidding phase is approximately $10,000. For the windows, it's approximately $7,600. Now, during the bid phase, it's our responsibility to assist the town and assist the owner's project manager in the process of answering all of the questions that the bidders have, issuing addenda or clarification, should that be necessary, attending several pre-bid conferences and walkthroughs that would occur with the proposed contractors, then conducting an assessment of all of the bids received, including in the case of filed sub-bids, there would be multiple bids for each of those. The construction contract administration phase, and again, this is broken out by roof and by window because there will be two independent contracts. So the construction contract administration phase for the roof is approximately $64,000. For the window projects, it's approximately $46,000. Now, what's involved with that process? It begins immediately after the award of the contract. And it includes all of the review of all the documents that get submitted by the contractors, all of the shop drawings, all of the submittals, all of their requests for applications for payments, and the generation of the initial schedule of values. That gets reviewed along with our estimator to review and make sure that the costs and the breakdown that the contractors submit is appropriate so that it's not front-end loaded, for instance, and that it accurately reflects the sequence and the amount of work that would be occurring with each of the components in the project. During construction, we would be on site on a regular basis conducting project meetings and documenting those meetings and making sure that the contractors are on schedule, reviewing their schedule, reviewing the quality of the work, and reviewing the work that gets installed as it moves along. And then there's a closeout phase that is included and that would document all of the warranties, that would compile all of the information that occurred throughout the project, and working with the commissioning agent would also bring that together so that the town would have all of that information at the close of the project and be able to move forward and understand what they bought. So I hope that is an adequate breakdown.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on Article 1? Yes, sir, right up front.
Pat Michaels, 306 Elm Street. I was just wondering, so it looks like off the numbers that went up there, 2/3 of the projects getting a portion of the money from the state, whatever the board's called. Mm-hmm. What type of time frame is that money good for? So if this doesn't pass, or like if it doesn't go through or it doesn't pass with the town, how long do we have for that money to be there? And if not, how long until we can reapply for it in the future?
I'll try and find out. Mr. Seelig, if you'd have a seat, please, we'll get an answer for you.
The MSBA runs funding cycles, and you have to be in the right place at the right time. Back 2 Januaries ago, Joy had done a huge amount of work in submitting the original application, basically said, hi, we need help. And they said, okay, yes, we agree, you need help. And then we've spent the next year working through this phase of the project. The problem is that now it's March. The grant cycle started again back in January for next year, so that if we don't vote for this tonight and on Saturday, we're back at square one. There is no place to go and get the money. What we have to do is wait until January of 18, resubmit, start over again. Then we'll see, I would expect everybody sometime, let's say in about this time of 2019, and we'll be having this conversation again. That's how long it's going to take if the town declines to move forward on this project.
Thank you. Any further questions? You have a question?
My name is Dorothy Noguera. The work needs to be done. The children need to be safe. Can we vote?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Grayson, do you have a question or no? It's better if we don't applaud or boo. It just gets out of hand, so you have a chance to vote. That's why we're going to exercise your voice that way, so let's do it that way.
John Grace, 7 Spencer Drive again. I would agree. Absolutely agree. But I just want to make everybody in front of us here tonight that you have to understand where we're coming from. We're extremely suspicious taxpayers at this time, okay? A design cast bid, I think it was your words that you already said you came in extremely lower than others at the BSA or whatever it is, BSPA, accept.
Please don't talk to the moderator.
I'm sorry,
please.
Mr. Moderator,
Thank
to the
you.
designer.
Yes.
Okay?
The previous speaker, we understand.
He already said that he's already come in well below what the BSPA requires. I'm sorry, what is it?
MSP.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Okay.
So, I mean, we have a little bit of a suspicion here. And the other thing I would like to just say, and again, I want to just say that I agree. School needs it. We need to move on and vote. But will there be any forums that we can sit and listen to and hear back from the people who are running this project so that the clapboards don't get put on backwards? Thank you.
We'll find out. Somebody from the Board of Selectmen want to handle that question? Mrs. Roy, Mr. Milius, Mr. Garin? Turn your mic on.
If it puts you to any kind of ease, the building committee, the school building committee on this particular project has been asking the right questions. We've asked about the types of materials that we're talking about. They are durable materials, which is a major aspect of this. That's what we did not have before. I know the building inspector, Mr. Piccirilli, has wanted to be involved in some of the oversight. I have a little background in this myself. I'm on the committee. I assure you due diligence will be made.
Any further discussion or debate? Yes, ma'am, in the middle.
Mr. Moderator, we haven't even been told how many windows and doors are going to be replaced. It says windows and doors, that's it. Well,
All of them, as far
all the ones in the top back hallway, they're only 23 years old. Why are we replacing all them?
I'll find out. Somebody have an answer for that as to what we're replacing and
It's true that some of the windows are 23, 24 years old, and a number of them have already begun to fail. So this was discussed at length with the committee and determined that do we just replace some of them now and then wait for others to fail next year or the year after or the year after? If you replace them now, the state is paying 56% of the cost. So it was discussed, and it was determined, yes, we could reduce the number of windows, but it didn't make sense because they're starting to fail. Some of them have already failed, and others, because they're of the same age, will be failing shortly. So it made sense. The committee decided that, no, we'll replace them because we don't want to go back. I think I don't want to put words in the committee's mouth, but they didn't want to come back and ask in a year or 2 or 3, suddenly we need to replace them and spend all of our money as opposed to having the state share in that cost.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing no evidence thereof. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Moderator can try to hear a 2/3 vote, and that's what we'll do first. If I don't, we will then take a standing ballot. All those in favor of the article as proposed by the Board of Selectmen, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes by 2/3 majority. We move on to the next article.
Article 3.
Article 3. Article 3 is proposed by
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Garin.
I would move that written planning board recommends.
I'm sorry?
We're planning on passing over this one.
Planning board wants to pass over.
We're passing over Article 3.
You want to move to pass over Article 3. Just a minute, just a minute, just a minute, please. You have opportunity to speak on it. So the Board of Selectmen, do we have a second, first of all? Do we have a second on passing over? We have a motion and a second to pass over Article 3. Passing over means we will be not taking any action on Article 3, and it'll just die for this meeting. Mr. Garin, you have the floor, or Mrs. Roy, whoever, if you want to speak to why it wants to pass over. Mr. Seeley.
Yeah, I don't do building maintenance, but I do a little bit of everything else, I guess. What the sequence of events, of course, is that we originally proposed this as a change because we've dealt with some situations here in town that I'm not going to go do a huge song and dance about. The idea of improving the flow of the permitting process for these types of events. The planning board held its hearing a couple weeks ago. They're required to do so because they also have to then make a recommendation at town meeting. And there was a fair amount of discussion, good discussion. We had, I think, over 30 people there. And aside from town meeting, I can't imagine many meetings get 30 people. So it was a well worth and well-attended hearing. There were a couple of questions that were asked at that hearing that I wanted to go back to Land Use Council to talk about because I don't want a situation where we're presenting something tonight that's ill-written, even by me, and I'm the person who wrote this, that it was going to result in worse problems or the same problems that we have today. And one of those problems is that our zoning bylaw, in terms of outdoor entertainment, it falls under several different uses. For instance, open-air businesses are defined as something that is temporary and doesn't have a structure. Well, if I'm holding a concert, that's pretty much it right there. It's temporary, it doesn't have a structure. There's the use that we have listed also about outdoor entertainment and indoor entertainment. That's also a possibility that could fall into that. And a third one is open-air businesses and operations. Again, something that the entertainment could fall into. Rather than come to you tonight and ask you to approve something and then come back 2 months later and say, oops, you voted for something that we probably shouldn't have brought to you. What the Board of Selectmen is asking is, let's take a step back, think this through a bit more, and then if it's necessary, come back in May with a better written article. As far as Mudfest is concerned, right now the Zoning Board of Appeals has determined that Mudfest is an agricultural event. There is a court case pending, but it has not been decided yet. It is not going to be decided before the next iteration of Mudfest in June. So the Zoning Board of Appeals ruling holds. So it doesn't we don't need a change tonight to deal with Mudfest. Mudfest will be able to go on in June or whatever other date it has this spring without a zoning problem. They'll still have to get the live entertainment permit from the Board of Selectmen, but the board has done that before. They've issued stipulations. We haven't had a problem. But in terms of zoning, my recommendation to the board, and the board agreed, is we'd rather bring something that's right in May than have you vote something that's wrong. And I don't mean that politically wrong, but in a sense of putting the town in a worse position today. We'd rather go with May. Thank you.
Now you have just 1 second. We're going to need the planning board's recommendation also, so if there's a planning board, Mr. Andrews. Thank you. Mr. Andrews, would you please give us the planning board's recommendation on the motion to pass over?
On motion to pass over?
Yes. That's the only thing on the floor right now is to pass over Article 3.
Planning board's motion is to pass over the article.
So you recommend that also?
We recommend that.
Okay. Finance Committee's recommendation on the motion to pass over Article 3.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Finance Committee recommends. Is there any debate or discussion on the motion to pass over, meaning we will not take any action on Article 3? Seeing no evidence thereof, all those in favor of passing over Article 3, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes by unanimous. Next article.
Article 6.
Article 6, which is proposed by the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Garin.
I move that we vote, see if the town will vote to request the Board of Selectmen to notify the Silver Lake Regional School Committee. We're going to pass over.
What?
Give me my moment.
We need a motion, Mr. Garin. You're halfway through. Come on.
The town of Halifax recommending approval or disapproval of proposed land sales owned by the Silver Lake Regional School District to the town of Kingston for a police station, and the town of Kingston take any action relative there. And what we've decided is that at this moment, we would like to pass over this article.
So you want to move to pass over Article 6?
Yes.
I have a second on that. I have a motion and a second to pass over Article 6. Mr. Garin, it's your motion. Do you want to speak to it?
The reason this article was placed on here in the first place is that there was a vote taken by the school committee, regional school committee, to sell a piece of property to Kingston for a police station. Their council recommended to them that they allow the 3 towns involved to vote on that. The school committee decided not to and sent legislation before the state reps, Senate, which passed, which allows them to make the decision to sell it without consulting the towns. We just wanted to have this vote tonight, and I feel that perhaps is not a really good time to discuss it because it will not, in fact, affect what the school committee could do, but it's more as an informational bit for the town people.
Okay. Finance Committee's recommendation on passing over Article 6?
The Finance Committee recommends.
Finance Committee recommends. Is there any debate or discussion on the motion to pass over Article 6, meaning we'll take no action? All those in favor of the motion to pass over say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 7.
Mr. Moderator?
Ms. Roy.
I move that we vote to see if the town will raise and appropriate the transfer from available funds the sum of $1 to fund the provisions of the collective bargaining agreement for fiscal year 2017 between IAFF Local 3159 firefighters and the town of Halifax, including a provision that the town pay the difference in pay between the pay received by an employee in military service and the amount that the employee would receive working for the town or take any action thereon.
We have a second? Okay, the motion is to transfer from undesignated fund revenue. Is that right?
Yes, well, my motion.
Thank you.
did say
Mrs.
that.
Roy, it's your article.
There's currently a similar wording in the police contract, and we discovered that it was not part of the firefighter contract. This amendment to the contract would allow a firefighter that is serving in our armed forces for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts or the armed forces of the United States of America to be paid the difference between the wages earned through the government and what their town of Halifax base pay, which would include stipends but not include shift differential or detail pay. The time period would only qualify for a military leave that is for more than 17 consecutive days. A union member on said leave shall not accrue vacation leave, sick leave, personal days, etc., and shall not be eligible for any sick leave bonus.
Okay. Finance Committee's recommendation on Article 7 as moved.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Finance Committee recommends. Is there any discussion or debate on Article 7 as proposed? Seeing no evidence thereof, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimous. Mr. Guerin, we could use a motion to adjourn to a time certain, that being Saturday, March 11th, 2017 at 10 o'clock to meet at the Halifax Elementary School to take up the ballot questions.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Remember, please come out Saturday and reaffirm the vote you took tonight. Otherwise, it lacks no power.